Welcome to the PEC Super Achievers webinar brought to you by the PEC Alumni Association in the Bay Area. This is Parveen Gupta. Thank you all for joining our webinar.
Yes, yeah.
Our esteemed guest speaker today is Mr. Kapil Nanda. I have an interesting story to tell about how I met Kapil Nanda. I got admitted to the University of Kansas in January of 1969 for my master's. Somebody at PEC told me that Kapil Nanda is already there. So I just sent a USPS letter or mail to Kapil about my itinerary. To my pleasant surprise, he showed up at the Lawrence, Kansas bus depot to receive me and took me to his home. I stayed with him for a few days. You guys can all hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I believe his generosity and good deed towards me changed his fortune forever. He acquired the Midas touch. He was head of engineering and senior VP at Altos Computers in the 80s. It wasn't common for an Indian to reach that level at that point in time. He founded Infogain, a software engineering company, in 1990 and grew it exponentially as a CEO for 28 years. Infogain was finally acquired for a $900 million valuation in 2021. Do you want to know one of the secrets of his success? A friend and ex-colleague of mine at Satyam, Sunil Bhatia, was CEO of another IT services company that merged with Infogain in 2016. Later on, he became the CEO of Infogain. Sunil Bhatia sent the following quote about Kapil. He was always gracious with a good, humane leadership style. He welcomed me as a CEO and then gave me the freedom to perform. Isn't that wonderful? I think you're allowed to clap in a webinar also, by the way. I will let Kapil explain his amazing story and give you more secrets of his success. It gives me immense pleasure to present to you our PEC Super Achiever and the person with the Midas touch, Mr. Kapil Nanda.
Thank you, Praveen, for the great introduction, and namaste to all my fellow PEC classmates. I'm overwhelmed by the number of PEC graduates who have registered for the seminar. Hopefully, most of them can join. I look forward to an interactive session, and let's get started. In my education in early years, like all of you, at PEC, BS in Aeronautical Engineering, 1967. After I graduated, there were really no aerospace jobs in India. There was a company called Hindustan Aeronautics, but they weren't hiring. It is at that time, while I was a lecturer, I considered coming to the U.S. To get a master's degree and maybe some training, and then go back to India and hopefully and have better opportunities. So I applied to a number of universities, and each application cost like $20, and that was a lot of money. So you have to pick what universities you can apply to. I maybe applied to 8 or 10, got admission in 5 or 6. Some great universities, but I had no way of correlating which is the top university. Like I was admitted in Brown University, IIT in Chicago, etc. But I chose Kansas because a good friend of mine was already there. His name was Arun Sopti, and I think Praveen knows him well. So the fees were manageable, and it was a one-year program. So I came to Kansas, and as soon as I got there, I spoke with the head of the department, asking if there was any work available for me, and I was offered quarter-time assistantship. That got me started well. Next semester was half-time, and if you get half-time assistantship, your tuition goes down. And so that was a great journey. I was able to complete the master's in 2 semesters in the summer. But then after graduation, what do I do now? As a foreign student, it was in '69. The economy wasn't that good. Vietnam War had just ended, and the jobs in aerospace were very small. But the place, head of aerospace, the hub for aerospace was Los Angeles. So I had a good friend there, and I went to Los Angeles and waited for a couple months to get a job. And a friend of mine, Gogi Sethi, Gurinder Mohan Singh Sethi, mechanical, I think class of 65, uh, I got in touch with them. He was working for a company called Burroughs Computers, which was one of the large mainframe companies. And there were some openings in the software QA department. So he got me a referral and I got that job. So basically that became the first transition from me being wanting to be an aerospace engineer into going to work for a computer company. But all this was new to me. Computers, software, etc. Uh, and that is part of my journey, how to pivot given what opportunities lies with you or what you have to do to really survive at those times. So Burroughs was a large computer company, a great learning experience. I work in the software group. Then the question is, what is software? Never knew that. At that time, there was no computer science or software degrees available. But this is what you picked up if you were just in general engineering, in electrical engineering, or in mathematics. So I started in the QA department. The company had developed a new compiler. The question, what is compilers? But I won't get into that. That was deep down into the heart of the computers. And I soon became the project leader for the group, maybe a group of about 4 or 5 people. In the meantime, Gogi and I started MBA program at USC in the evenings. And so our day was 8 in the morning till 10 at night, full-time MBA program, and that we completed in 2 years. So while I was working at, it's about 1974, I was working at Burroughs, and I get a call from a recruiter saying that he was calling for a company from the Bay Area that needed compiler people. And the company is a semiconductor company. I had no clue what semiconductors are at that point. And the company name was Intel. And that is my introduction to Silicon Valley. I came up here for an interview, had a good day with the team, and they offered me, when I got back, they offered me a job, and they wanted me ASAP to come in. This was the start of the computer journey for Intel, going from a semiconductor memory company to a computer company. I was offered a nice bump in salary. They offered to get me a green card, and they offered me stock options. I had no clue what stock options were at that point. So this was the whole culture of Silicon Valley, so different. The group that I joined, I worked with young people, and the whole different culture than was at the Burroughs. Burroughs, everything was controlled by the headquarters in Detroit. Here, I worked in a building where all the execs were. Okay, and you got introduced to them, and they had this company had a different energy and more of a can-do attitude. So I learned very quickly what's the company revenue, what are the profits, what's the stock price, etc. So you get tuned to the company, and this was the Silicon Valley culture. You know so much about what's happening, and you immerse yourself into that. So I was there as an engineer for a couple of years, and the group was growing. And some of there was an announcement one time that they promoting about 3 or 4 people to be managers from our group, and my name was not there. So I was disappointed. I went to my boss and said, "How come I'm not in that group? Is my work not good or whatever?" He said, we never thought you'd be interested to be a manager. And so that's one of the things that, you have to communicate and your interest and demonstrate what you're capable of doing so that, you're on the list to when opportunities come. So, so question was, can I make it a jump from engineering to management? And I indicated I was interested and so on. So as we just move forward a couple of years, I was managing, I became a director of the software, one of the groups in software, and I was managing about 30 people. And a lot of the people who got promoted and I was working for ended up, working for me. And, I can't tell why it was there, but I think it was the can-do attitude, go out of your way, uh, make a good relationship with your directors and people around you. So Intel was at that time transitioning from a chip company to a computer company. And there was need for application development tools. You have to have a host computer to run all your applications on. You have to develop an operating system, compilers. There's a language called PL1, Fortran, Basic, etc. So basically, all these tools are available today to everybody. We all go to the App Store and get an application ready to go. But at that time, everything was done ground up. So I was promoted to help answer one of those questions. And at the same time, there was a competition going on between Motorola and Intel as to whose processors would succeed. And it all later boiled down to, what are the tools available around the processor that will help develop applications that will get people to then use our chips, Intel chips, in their applications. So I recruited several PhDs in the program, and Intel. One of the things they did was they always overhired. If you need a guy who with a BS degree who could do the job, they would look for masters and PhD people, and seems a little overkill at that time. But later, all these people developed into leaders, and they were able to think beyond the box, innovation, and all that. So that's one of the things that you learn is that it depends on your team what they're able to do and make you look good. So and that is I carried that with me all along. Hire the best people around you, people who are more smarter and intelligent than you, and don't be worried about, gee, he's smarter than me, I can't hire him. I think it's the other way around. So at that time, we developed some of the tools, but our salespeople told us we need a basic interpreter to run on our machines because that's what a lot of these small business applications were written in. So that's when I looked around. I don't think we had the capability to develop it in-house. We went outside and figured out who has a compiler that we can buy or port to our systems. This is, enter Bill Gates. Bill Gates at that time was running a company called Microsoft. It was a 10-man company with headquarters. Their company was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I went and visited him. We struck a deal for $100,000. He was going to develop this product for us. And so I became his customer. So there was interaction directly with Bill Gates and me for a couple of years while he developed the product and so on. What was interesting was that he seemed always very driven. He was a young man, I think maybe 10 years younger than me. Always thinking big, what he can do. Whenever I went and saw him, he would say, IBM was here last night, and I can tell you what I'm doing for them. I think it was later on, it was a PC OS that did. But he had a capability of impressing you with his reach and products that they were doing. So, and I'll come back later to that. So I got to know him very well, and eventually was able to produce a whole set of tools around the Intel 8080 chip. Those of you who go back that far, it became the 8086 chip, then the 286 chip, and then part of my job as a head of one of the departments of software engineering was the architecture of the chips. So with my group, there's a fellow named Steve Morse who designed the architecture for the 286, and then the guy I hired, his name John, I'm forgetting the last name. He was the architect of the Pentium chip. I had hired him from the University of North Carolina to come and work on the compiler development at Fortran. John, the name will come to me, and very well recognized and so on. But that really expanded my technical horizons, coming from a background of aeronautical engineering, coming here to be architecting computer chips and then providing all the tools go around it. That really widened my horizon to see what the computer world is like, hardware, software, and so on. So everything went well, and then I was doing well. I got plenty of stock options that allowed me to buy my first home in the Valley, and also allowed me to, Intel was the place where I could really interface with management. The company was in the news then a lot, Intel, so became very well known since the time I joined to later. Now in 1974, I was recruited to be head of software for a new startup called Altus Computers. And it was a great opportunity. I joined the company, and it was a small company at that time, just a startup, maybe a couple $1 million. And they were trying to develop microcomputers, multi-user microcomputers, basically computer based on a processor chip from Intel and also Motorola, and also then put together all the software system around that system. Earlier, they had been using an operating system called CPM. Some of you guys may remember that. There's a fellow named Gary Gildall in Monterey, California. And we were using a system. They had a multi-user version of the system called NPM. But it could not really upgrade to faster chips. So Altus was looking at developing a proprietary operating system. When I came in as head of software, I convinced my boss, Dave Jackson, he was an Englishman, that I think the way to go forward is Unix. And the only company who was licensed by AT&T to market Unix was, again, Microsoft. They had a product, they could not call it Unix, they call it Xenix. So I revived my relationship with Bill Gates again. By this time, they had moved to Seattle. They were a bigger company, maybe about 40 people. And I went to see Bill, and he's always had big things in mind. He told me, Kapil, now I have 4 divisions. We're really expanding big. They were into providing add-on memories, and they were doing some languages and some applications. And that's where they developed the first spreadsheet product called Multiplan. And that was an offshoot of an earlier spreadsheet product called VisiCalc. The company didn't make it. Microsoft took up, called the product Multiplan. That's what called the current spreadsheet that Microsoft has. Okay, so I went to Altos, and that was a whole different experience. This was again uh, different than Altos. So this was, you know, uh, with this was with venture capital money. The company that had invested in Altos was uh, Sequoia Capital, very well known at this point. It was a small venture capital company headed by the founder was Don Valentine, and uh, they were really watching their dollar and so on. But basically, in about a year or so, we were able to get Unix ported on our computers, and the company became very successful. From a startup, it, it in about a year after it got there, it became big enough to go public, and that was a big turning point in my career. Uh, I did have a good number of options. I became uh, part of the management team. I knew what was happening in the company, and it went public. Uh, big write up in the Wall Street and things like that. So there also I uh, got to know Don Valentine, who was the venture capital investor, and they at that time most of these VC companies, Sequoia Capital, Kleiner Perkins. There was a fellow at Kleiner Perkins who was a partner named John Doerr. He used to be a compatriot at Intel, and his wife Ann Doerr used to work for me. So I got to know a lot of these people in the VC world, and uh, I presented them a lot of opportunities they invested in, and I became an advisor to Sequoia Capital for software. Software was a new term. These VC people were all semiconductor people, or all hardware knowledgeable people. There was very little knowledge about software in the valley, and they would send me any opportunities that would come their way to evaluate to say is it worth looking at investing or not. So there was a couple of companies that came forward at that time. One of them was Oracle, the second one Informix, and I did the evaluation for those companies and recommended that they invest. So Sequoia Capital was the lead investor in Oracle. They invested, and they allowed me to co-invest a small amount of money too at that time. So I formed a relationship with them where I became a LP, a limited partner at Sequoia Capital, and they gave me an opportunity to do a lot of investment with them. So I was at Altos for 8-9 years. Along the way, the PC came out, the IBM PC, maybe in the year 86, 87, and so on. And it became then a network PC. So basically, they took the market away from the microcomputer market that we had, because this was a cheaper solution, a more widely available solution. A number of companies started developing PCs. So companies' fortunes started to not grow or decline. So in 1989, I had done well with some stock options, etc. I decided to retire. So it was at what I was maybe 40 some years old, low 40s, and I decided to retire. And after about 5-6 months, I became pretty fidgety with nothing to do. I'd done some traveling and other fun stuff, and I was ready for some opportunities. A good friend of mine, his name was Phil White. He worked with me at Altos as head of sales and marketing. He was from IBM, and then later he went and became president of a company called Wyse, WYSE. They were into terminals, and then later computers. And then he became the CEO of Informix Software. There's a big database company. At that time, they were equal in size to Oracle. So he called me one day, and he used to call me Cap, not Kapil, Cap. Hey, Cap, I need help. Why don't you come in and take care of some of the software issues that I have here, and I need the work done quickly. So I went there and looked at what I could help and do, and basically that was the seed of starting Infogain. He said, do these projects. So I had business day one. I was able to hire a team of 8-10 people. And at that time, I thought this would be maybe 1 or 2 year gig. And the company was immediately profitable. But I ran the company for 25 years, so it didn't stop right there. So in a couple of years, our size grew, and we became pretty proficient in certain areas of software. There was porting of software. At that time, there wasn't a common platform like you may have today, like Apple platform or PC platform. There were various processors and chips and operating systems, etc. So if you had a product to get more sales, you had to port the product over to a different platform with different operating system, different processor. But there was a lot of work over there in that area. So I had a relationship through the VCs, etc. And so we became the go-to company for a lot of the product companies to do the porting. And the companies there at that time were companies like PeopleSoft, Clarify, if some of you remember the old CRM times, Salesforce later. So we did very well in that area, and also in QA, in porting, software engineering, development of software tools, etc. And so by 2010, we were about a $50 million company. I had already opened a development center in India, and we were employing a lot of people there. So we got pretty well known. And differentiator that we had, different than a lot of the other software service companies, were that we were a U.S. company. Whereas companies like Infosys, that wasn't that big at that time, Tata, etc., they were Indian company. So it take a while for a lot of the companies here to warm up to those companies. And obviously they became very successful, they got bigger and so on, as time went on. So we became specialists in the porting QA area. We had started a retail division, so we got pretty well known in the retail space. Companies like Macy's and all their point of sale terminals, to program them, and companies like Victoria's Secrets and FedEx. Some of you may know that FedEx acquired a company called Kinko's, and so they, other than being a logistics delivery company, they also had stores, so managed their FedEx stores, and so a number of large names. And we became the number one partner of Oracle. Had acquired their software from other companies, became the number one partner for Oracle there. And we were number one partner for a number of CRM companies to implement their products. And so we focused in 3 or 4 areas, and knowledge management was another area where we were the number 1 or number 2 in the market as it related to those products. We did very well. As time was going on, I looked around and seeing, what's the future of Infogain. I talked a little later, but I had 2 daughters, and I was hoping that they would join the business and lead it after I retired from Infogain, but they expressed no interest. They said not interested at all. And so, my company was very well known, in our sector, and I knew a number of bankers in Wall Street. They would bring me opportunities. I knew a lot of the good VC people, some execs in the Bay Area that I had the opportunity to work with. People like Larry Sonsini, who was the godfather of Silicon Valley. I worked with Bill Gates. I knew well, but as the company got bigger, then he was difficult to reach. And Larry Ellison, very early on when Oracle was just also getting going, I think I worked with him to port Oracle over to one of the Altus computers. Very early on, I met Jeff Bezos. We were working for another banker, PMG, and that's who took them public and was talking to us about doing some banking. So I met him several times. So in 1915, I was ready to look at opportunities, and a number of them were presented to me. One of them that I liked was brought to me by Jefferies, the bankers. It was a company, private equity firm from India, named Chris Capital. The young group of people, very impressive. They came over and made a good impression on me. And at that time, I wasn't ready to sell the company. So they said, why don't you buy a small portion of your company? And so they acquired 60% of Infogain, and I continued to manage it. And subsequent to that, Praveen had mentioned another fellow, Sunil Bhatia, that we both worked with. He had a company. He was working for a company in India, Blue Star Software, that we acquired, and he came with the acquisition. And later, we made him CEO of the company. So our company continued to grow. It was about $100 million when I spoke with Chris Capital, and I did the deal. After that, with their backing and other bankers, we were able to acquire 3-4 companies, and the company size got to about $250 million. Very well known, profitable, doing well. And the way the private equity firms work, they'd make an investment, help you with some acquisitions, and within 5, 7, 8 years, they want to get an exit. So they make a good return for their investors. And this time around, we had a number of callers who were interested in the acquisition of Infogain. And one of the companies was Apex Capital from London. And we did a deal with them to acquire my remaining shares of Infogain and also Chris Capital's for $900 million. And that was a very exciting transaction for me and my family, and also for Chris Capital. So here's another transition point. I did this in 2021, and then what next? So I had a lot of assets to manage, and with that, I'd done along the way a lot of real estate developments. By this time, I had invested in some friends in a number of hotels. I was a good partner in California, Arizona, and other places. So I formed a family office, which is a common term here, which looks like big, so that there's someplace to go. You have a small staff to really manage the assets. We did some angel investments in 10, 15 companies. And as you know, angel investments, some work out, some mostly don't. We've done some other investments, and I'm still doing that. So I'm still managing partner of Capital Partners, which has been very interesting. I'm going to divulge a little bit. So my family. Uh, I'm married to Margaret, whom I met in 1974 when I was still in Pasadena and working boroughs. I moved up here in 74, worked for Intel. I got married in 1980 to Margaret. Margaret is a very well accomplished real estate attorney with big area specialization, and she's very well known in California. She also recently retired. I have two daughters. The elder one, Natasha, is a special education teacher. And we have three grandsons, and she's right now managing the grandsons. And my younger daughter, Anjali, is a lawyer. She worked for Wilson Sonsini for 4 or 5 years. Then I convinced her to come work with me. And so she's a general partner here at Capital Partners. And Margaret and I, we've always had a small amount of social philanthropy that we've been doing. So we have created a Nanda Family Foundation, which Natasha and Margaret manage. So this is where I am now. I think it's been a great journey. And the interesting part was there was many pivots along the way, from studying as a aeronautical engineer, ending up as a entrepreneur, and going through all the rigmarole of growing the company, final exit, starting a family office, working with my family now together. So it is truly a family office where both my daughter and wife come and contribute. And I figure out this is a good way of transitioning over the responsibilities and the family assets that are managed properly. So I think I've told you my journey, which may be slightly different than the others, but I think most of the Indians, not necessarily Indians, the PEC graduates are smart people. They do well. I think you only can get into PEC if you're inherently intelligent and smart. So, and the two things here, sometimes you can take the attitude, you kind of deal with the card you're dealt with. The other attitude is you make your opportunities go beyond that. Do above and beyond what's expected of you. And I took a lot of risks along the way, going from aerospace engineering to developing compilers. I know nothing about it. There was a lot of on-the-job learning. I took evening classes at UCLA, etc., to understand what computers are. Going from that into Intel, semiconductor, whole different environment, whole different world. Again, a risk, but with huge rewards. There, I learned the bigger picture of what microcomputers are, what the other software tools are. Then going over to Altos, totally different. I was, supposed to be responsible for the entire set of software that goes in a computer. You got to learn a lot more beyond, what's the floppy drive, what's the EEPROM, and how do you program that? And it's floppy disks, and I was dealing with the manufacturers of floppy disks and so on. By the way, some of you may know, one of the leaders in the disk technology area, then also a good friend, was a fellow named Jaggi Tandon. He made floppy drives and then hard disk drives. And at a very young age, at around 40, he was in the Forbes 400. The company went public. He was also very well known. He passed away a couple of days ago. Sorry to hear that. Some of you may know him. Uh, and then after all this is done, uh, you know, involves somewhat with philanthropy. And I'm also a trustee at Santa Clara University. That again opened up a whole new, world to me about education, what's happening there. And in some ways, universities are also run as businesses. Uh, they have to bring in the money to pay for it and look for growth, and it's complicated. Uh, but I've enjoyed being a trustee there. It's again opened up opportunities and meeting people. So over the years, I really enjoyed life. I think family is important. You have to define what success is for you individually, and uh, and I think in the Silicon Valley, the culture is money plays a big part here. I think everybody wants to get rich quick, get options, etc. But I think you can define your own what happiness means to you, and you don't have to do everything your neighbor is doing to be happy. You figure out what happiness means to you, Uh, and wealth is not money alone. Wealth is knowledge. Wealth is uh, your ability to create wealth is wealth. And the final thing I'd say is that what I've helped me and I instill in people is the spirit or idea of being an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a founder and start a company and do things like that. You could be an entrepreneur in your own department in a company. So what does it mean? Be innovative. Think about how does your product fit in the overall scheme of the company? Are you making for the company? Understand what your contribution is. And I think get excited about that. Not, there's so many smart people, including people from PEC all over. I'm talking more about the US, Sprinkle in the US, doing very, very well. And they're not necessarily running their own company. They didn't found the company, but they're managing a part of the business of a larger company. And that's being an entrepreneur. So there are opportunities all over the place. So I want to end here. I think I've taken enough of your time to uh, say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to meet with, talk to a lot of you. Uh, and I'm overwhelmed with the number of people who signed in. I don't know how many really uh, logged in this morning. So thank you so much, and I'll just turn it over back to Praveen.
Thank you, Kapil. I really appreciate it. That was fantastic. Pooja, go ahead. Let's take up some questions, and Pooja will moderate the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Praveenji. Yeah, and thank you, Kapilji. I mean, it was really inspiring. I mean, your story and your struggles that you have gone through. I'm sure it was not an easy journey. I mean, and I see a lot of questions here. I don't know where to start with. But let me just ask you one question. So we all know our career is a long journey. I mean, minimum 30-40 years, right? I mean, and you go through you really and the technology is really changing at a very rapid pace. So what do you suggest? How can we keep ourselves relevant and valuable at work? I mean, what are your
You
top
know,
three maybe suggestions? Yeah, please. Thanks.
there's no one answer. I think different people will have different answers to that.
Yeah.
Uh, you have to be a constant learner, and keep up with things happening in technology. And also, depending on where you are in your career or what level you are in a company or your own company, uh, you don't have to be the master of everything. I think you should get smart people around you who will take care of that. You know, uh, Towards the last 2 3 years at Altos, I was head of all engineering. I never knew what the hell how to design a circuit and things like that and so on. What goes into a chip but hire the best people around you. So you then become a businessman managing people, and your job is to to find out what skills do you need to bring into the company, okay, and who are the manager. So I think that's how you do. So I think you can only learn so much yourself, and then beyond that, surround yourself with the best people, and that's how you can keep the journey going. So that's the entrepreneurial situation that I talked about earlier. You be an entrepreneur, think about what to do, and you can do that.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you so much.
Okay, hi Kapil. It was interesting to learn your story, but I have a question about the family life balance. Did in early years when the girls were growing up, Anjali and Natasha, and when you were newly married, did they ever get mad to you? You have no time for us. You're not spending enough time with us. You're always busy at
Yeah.
work. How did you manage that?
So I had children 7-8 years after I was married, and so I have to give all credit to my wife. I think she managed to make the time to be with the girls and attend all the functions, etc. I was secondary, okay, and I was very busy. I think my wife Margaret managed her business. She was a partner in a law firm, and she managed her business accordingly that she could make the time available. And later in life, when the girls were maybe more like in college, etc., when I was running Infogan, then I had the opportunity to manage my own time. And we did make sure that we were there to support the girl. So early on, I think my wife was the main person who managed that. And I think being girls, it was fine with them.
So she was part of the big success, your wife. Her
Very
confidence.
big, very big. I think helping the family unit together, and I think a lot of my relationships in the valley were because of her. I think one of the things I have to say, and this may not be everybody may not agree with me, but I think it's important when you're in the U.S. There's a saying that when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I think you had to understand the American culture and be part of it, and not necessarily be talking about cricket with them all the time, okay? And what's baseball like and things like that. So I think that makes people comfortable to work with you. Now, when you're a businessman, how do you make sure? And I think a lot of times in a company like mine, was mine, Infogame, the customers depended on you for developing or managing a big product that would influence the company a lot. So they're trusting you to deliver. And so how do you gain their trust? And I think one is not necessarily all through social relationships. You have to demonstrate. But I think all those helped a lot.
Sure, go
My
ahead.
name is Chip Tawar, a PEC graduate, 1957. I live in Canada, and my interest is in education. You talked about your interest in education. I'd like to have a dialogue with you sometime in education. I've been working on science of life, living with purpose, health, happiness, and harmony. And that has been my interest for a long time.
I'd be happy to talk to you anytime. So
I'll put
give me
my
a call.
I have my email address in a chat, and I'll also put my phone
Okay,
number.
great.
Thank you.
In terms of education, I think my family is involved in education. My elder daughter was she went to USC, and just as a side note, I was very keen that she would join the business, but she was very determined to be a teacher, and she became a special ed teacher and was a great teacher. Now she's taking a little respite because she's got 3 young boys that she's managing. I learned a lot about education here in Santa Clara University as a trustee and a member of a lot of committees, and there's a lot to learn there. Third, I have a number of friends who were a graduate of 1967. Some of them have done very well professionally and financially. There's a fellow named Monty Ahuja who's done some great work in auto parts work out of Cleveland. A great fellow. There's another fellow, Manmohan Singh Kalsi out of Houston. He runs Kalsi Engineering, brilliant engineer. He and Monty were maybe the topper in our class. They have approached PEC in the last couple of visits, 5, 7, 8 years, and really willing to invest or donate money to PEC. And it's been really challenging to get any good response from them. Even I tried to meet with the director there once or twice because it become very bureaucratic. So I think I'm pivoting the discussion a little somewhere. I think earlier there was we heard from the dean of the alumni. I think it'd be great if there was a process set up where people around the world or the alumni can hook up back to the university and be able to give ideas, give money for some projects. And one of the questions asked by some of the people registered was, how come, what can we do to be known just like the IITs? I don't have one single answer for that. I think if you take a look at the effort that's been put out by the IIT, it's a bigger group.
Right.
And I think 15 years ago, people didn't know much about them. But they put up a lot of big lobby, the IIT alumni here in the US, etc. And I'm sure the colleges themselves have put up a big effort. They're welcoming for ideas, they're welcoming for donations, and so on. So I think it has to be a two-way street. So I don't know who could help here. So that's all.
Yeah.
Pooja,
Yes.
Ms. Kapil, this is Dr. Rajesh Khanna. I'm Dean Alumni right now in PEC.
Yes, we heard you. Yeah.
So in fact, just a small suggestion. Basically, the point is right now, some research projects that are faculty right, they go for assessment to Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, right, sir? For disbursement of funds. And they are, very frankly, I'm speaking, we have those who assess our projects, they are basically faculty from IITs only, and our success rate is very small, basically just 0.1%. We don't get those funding so liberally. So somehow, if our alumni based in US, so I don't say that you give us some money. If you can generate, develop some corpus for research in US, and you also can float some funds during the year. We can write project. You have your own, you generate your, develop your own assessment team. You get our projects assessed from experts in US, and then you can also fund our projects. The way Government of India funds us, you can also fund a little, like some of our projects, you can have a cap over there, find 1 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore, whatever basically your limit is. So we can send our projects for assessment to you, and you get those assessed from your team, and you can also release money for that. So this is one suggestion, sir. And Monty Ahuja, and basically whosoever, right now 1965 batch mechanical engineering graduate, Mr. Kameshwar Gupta, he is heading one association, PEC US Alumni Association, sir. So I am in touch with them. Mr. Rooplal Mahajanji from 1964 mechanical, he's member of that. There are 5-6 members from that in that PEC US alumni group. So we can have we can have discussion, separate discussion for that. So if somehow you people can develop that research corpus for PEC, then definitely our ranking will improve. And
I think the challenge
That's a
there is that I think here people are individuals who are able to think about donating money. I think it'd be difficult for them to create a group over here who's doing research, etc., who then fund research in India. So I think that, I think it's an idea, great idea. Other people may like it. So I think it'd be great if maybe the top 5 opportunities are put together, and number one, you have to get the blessing from the college that they will welcome such involvement, and then work with some of the alumni group that you mentioned and see if you get a good answer from them.
I really enjoyed the history of you growing up in US and going through various companies. I actually didn't have a question, but I had a comment. Many of the paths that you took are very similar to some of the paths that I took. I worked for Intel from 1978 to 1988, and I heard you join Intel in 1974. I joined as a new college graduate in 1978, and later on, I was general manager of the EEPROM business, and you mentioned EEPROM in your talk. In my journey at Microchip Technology, Sequoia Capital was actually the founding venture capitalist for our company, and Don Valentine was my chairman. So I think,
Okay.
and Wilson Sonsini is our law firm. So I think we went through many of the same people. John Doerr was the leader for the second round of financing, and John Doerr actually has a quote on the cover of my book. So many of the people we ran into in Silicon Valley were really the same people, and some of the footsteps we took were really very similar. I really enjoyed your talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My name is Vijay Verma from Vancouver, Canada. I am a PEC 70 graduate from in electronics and electrical communications. Kapil, I am really, really impressed with your journey and your humbleness. I think that is the most important thing that you have kept. So I have a couple of questions. One is, I think Rakesh Taneja asked about the work-life balance, which I think we all struggled when we all came to this country. I came in 1970, so I've been in Vancouver mostly for 53 years, raising children, whether you know culturally, socially, what do you allow them, what you don't allow them, and so on. So we also have 2 daughters and a son. So what is the one thing that you think helped you the most, Kapil? And what do you enjoy the best now? Since you have achieved everything, you have got the money, you've got the fame, you've got the connections and everything. And one thing I really loved in your talk, that in order to grow, hire the best people working for you. I think that's the best advice we should all get.
well said. Yes.
We should have gotten this advice, I think, 20 years ago when we were really trying to go higher up. But I'm really, really enjoyed you. This is the first time I'm attending this PEC Super Achievers group, and I'd like to be connected to some of you. And Pooja, I put my phone number in the chat, or Praveen, if I can just, if you can phone me, or if you can send me an email or phone me, I like to get connected with your people. I'm really, really proud of the PEC family. And I agree with you, Kapil, that PEC people are,
Sure, Vijay.
they're hardworking people. I think what we have learned is how to really work hard and have some confidence. And I think that's a great thing. Now I'm in project management, and I chose a little bit of an academic field. I'm in a particle accelerator lab. I worked for 40 years. Then I published some books which were published by Project Management Institute on the human side of project management. So I teach leadership for them and so on. So I like to be connected with some of you. Very, very proud of you. Very proud of your all group.
We'll surely
Well,
get in touch
thank
with
you.
you, Vijay.
Thank you, Vijay. Quick answer. There's nothing, no secrets. There isn't one thing that I could say other than what I've already said, what to do along the way and how to succeed. But what do I enjoy more now? I have three grandsons. Three grandsons under the age of 6, one on the way. So I'm going to have 4 grandsons. I have 2 daughters who live within a mile of where I live. And so that is happiness. That is great. And
Good.
that's what I'm enjoying these days. And golf. So those 2 things.
Spend time with grandchildren. We have 7.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we are. And very
Oh,
blessed.
so spend time with grandchildren. That's when you stay. That is how you stay younger.
Yeah, correct.
And still can help out. I think that's the best thing to do.
Yeah, we are able to, and we're very happy about that.
Yeah. I think my son is actually followed some of these engineering steps. He's a professor in Princeton.
Okay.
After finishing his PhD at MIT. So I'm really proud of PEC family.
Yeah.
I actually had the fortune of attending a PEC global meet in Houston. That's where I connected with some of the people.
Oh, I see.
Of that batch or earlier and so on. And it was really nice to see them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's great to hear your inspiring life journey, Kapil sir. I think I'm joining from Mumbai in India. So this is my first time, and I think it couldn't get more inspiring than what I just heard. Just a brief, I'm a 2003 PEC pass out and been in India. 6 months back, I was in the area, and a quick connection. So my real brother's wife, she's actually heading HR in Infogame for US, LATAM, and Canada. And I think the world couldn't be,
What's her name?
Tarangita.
Oh, I met her.
Yeah. She in fact has told me about you, and I never realized that you're a great senior to us. So I think
I
the
met
world
her.
is such.
She's a lovely lady. Yes.
Yes, and so world is so short. So I have a quick question, Kapil sir, for you. I've been into like corporate HR for more than a decade now, and been on a fast track corporate kind of a journey. But post COVID, I have a kind of reflection that what we can really do beyond our job, beyond our family. And India is in a very pivotal moment. And in the backdrop of the kind of technological disruptions that's happening, I kind of turned also an angel investor, investing in some of the startup companies which have showing some great potential. So, what would be some of the tips for a country like India, which has so much potential, but also maybe a huge number of risks and derailers?
So let me start off by saying I've been away from India for a long time. So I'm not that much in touch that I can tell you what is the thing to do in India. I think I can only summarize or surmise that the opportunities have got to be huge. Look at all the companies growing, the wealth being generated, the opportunities being created. So the thing I would say, there are plenty of opportunities that were there. What are they to suit you? That'd be difficult to say. I can tell you about HR. There's a fellow named Phil Johnson who was head of HR at Altus Computers. Later, he was head of HR at Tandem Computers, and later he became head of HR at Infogame for the last 20 plus years. He became a very good friend, and I think you can play a bigger role in terms of not only just managing people or hiring, firing, and so on, or salary administration. You can become, I think Phil Johnson became a true advisor to me. Okay. He had my back all the time, and he had the pulse of the company. What is not being done right? What we should do? Who should I engage with? And basically, he had the magic of recruiting top people that I mentioned. Okay, and he had a way of using outside recruiters, etc., to manage bring in the team that I. So I give credit to him for a lot of the success of the company. And finally, one of his biggest skills was firing people. I think in a company, as you grow, you have to quickly, and that's one of the things I learned and do it. If somebody's not working, you got to move on. Okay. And I'll add another comment to that. You got to move on. So he had a way of just then, it's called the dirty work. It had to be done by somebody. And you had somebody very skilled at doing that. And so from an HR person, you can become really raise your contribution to a much higher level. Okay. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities.
Thank you. And if it's fine, I think probably I'll be in Bay Area in another 3-4 months. So I would definitely love to catch up
Give
and
me a
have
call. I
more
think
guidance.
Gita would know where I am, and I still know in touch with a few people. So I'm in Campbell, not far away.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this inspirational talk, Kapil Nanda. I'm a 65 graduate living in San Diego now, and was mentioned that we have founded this PEC US Alumni Foundation, which is a 501c3 charitable organization, and it's a platform where some of this communication between the alumni here and the PEC can happen as to what they like to see, what are the important venues and important projects that they want to pursue, and what are the need for that from the US alumni. So Dr. Roop Mahajan, he's right now in India, and he's been doing quite a bit of work to develop R&D fellowships at PEC, has donated quite a bit of money through our foundation, and it's open for anybody in US to donate any amount you want and to channel it for a purpose that you want. So I'll be there later on in February and meet with Dr. Kanda and the director who is on the board ex officio, and so is Dr. Naresh Sehgal from the Bay Area, and so on. So we're trying to set that up, the communication channel and a platform where we can coordinate the needs and the supply from the alumni of the talent, their contributions, and everything else. So we're on it in a small way, and we'll love to connect with you. I'll try to get the email.
I think that'd be very nice, and I think it'd be good if there's a way of communicating what you just mentioned to a wider group. And I think that'll be very helpful, and maybe people who are then interested in contributing can all connect together and maybe see what's happening. That'd be a good idea.
It's not just the money. We're looking for the the talent, skills, and
I think it'd be good, very good. That'd be a good platform.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you for the talk.
Sorry. Okay, all right, go ahead, Sachin. I'll bat cleanup. Go ahead, man.
So thank you, Kapilji, for your talk here. I was saying nobody's life ever goes in a straight line, either up or down. So it's always ups and downs and so on and so forth. So you came in early on. From a cultural standpoint, it was huge difference between India and US. Did you ever get a feeling that, hey, come on, like I need to go back in your down days, in your down phase?
There wasn't any such opportunity. You know what? A little bit of background. I came here, and my father looked at me, looked in my eye, and said, "How are you going to be back in a year?" They said, 1 year. I said, "No, Dad. How about 2?" I said, "I need to get some practical experience." Okay. And I think I stayed on longer. I think I had it took me a while to get my green card to be able to go back, and Intel helped me with that. By that time, I had met Margaret. Okay. So my motivation of going to India, it became challenging. And I did go to India, and the first time I went there in 1975 or something, at 7-8 years, I went back. While I was at Intel, there were a number of Indian companies would come to Intel to looking for products, advice, etc. So I got to know the head of DCM Computers. If you remember, they were there in Delhi, DCM Computers, and he's forgetting his name now. He came here. We got to know him. So I went to India. He knew I was coming. He called me and got a semi-interview with him and the head of the Delhi Cloth Mills company and all that. And they offered me a big job. And so my father and family said, done deal now. You got the job and, what are you going to do? I said, I'm not going to decide right now. Let me go back and I'll decide. And basically, I'm still here. So, so it was good, tempting, but I never took the step. And then,
Was that,
anyway,
was that Premship Dasani you're talking about, Kapil?
Say that again?
Was that Premship Dasani? He was general manager of DCM.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah, Premship Dasani. Yes. He was a guy, and I think no longer there. But he came.
Yeah, he died
and he would
a
come
long time ago.
every year or so. Yeah, he was a guy, Premship Dasani. And so I was going to be head of the compiler design group and our languages group and so on, but it didn't click. So I'm happy to be back. And then, I had the other connection, the roots over here. And so the question didn't arise after that.
Yeah, thanks. It was very informative. We do have something in common. We're first generation immigrants where, there were doctors, engineers, and lawyers, and also went to University of Kansas in Lawrence, but it was about 10 years later. And what is very informative to hear about Burroughs, IBM, then Microsoft, now cloud computing. So I made that journey and I have 40 years in IT. One thing I was going to say is just that, we all come from different backgrounds, and the journey is not a straightforward journey. Just because you're Indian doesn't mean you're going to be successful. There's roller coaster rides, there's up and downs, and you well as I know in the U.S. economy, it's not some government job where you get hired and 30 years later, you get pension and rewarded. But my comment is really simple: is that we're all Indian immigrants, regardless of what anybody says, and we should not forget our roots, where we come from, what our parents have done, and what they have sacrificed. So that's an integral part of our culture. Yes, we can do what the Romans do, but the reality is, you are who you are. So if somebody's trying to define you, change you, and you're trying to be the mainstream, that's fine. You can do it, but losing my identity, and that's what I learned when I got my citizenship here. The judge told me that, look, don't forget who you are, because if you forget who you are, then you're going to never know what you'll be able to do. So, and I'm also retired now, and I have a foundation where I do charity work and philanthropist. So I'm just going to comment, say, hey, good job, successful career, but don't forget who you are. Because once you forget who you are, then you kind of get lost, then you lose purpose. So so I really enjoyed it. Appreciate your time. And let's connect and stay in touch.
I'd be happy to anytime.
Yeah.
Okay, Praveen, thank you.
Thank you.
So Harpal, Harika, can you do the closing comments now, please, and we can wrap it up?
Definitely. And thank you, Kapil Nanda ji, for staying over and being generous with your time. I know it went over, but it was really interesting talk, and it was great to hear from you. This was an inspirational talk from your PEC, journey starting from PEC as an aeronautical engineer, going over to be an entrepreneur, influencing the technology sector here in the US. This really embodies the growth mindset, and that's what you shared with us. And these days, we talk about fixed mindset and growth mindset, and you are a living example of the growth mindset, where you kept your mind open. You had a can-do attitude. And if I can summarize, I think the three things that I gathered that you shared, the insights that you shared with us, are really importance of building a strong network, embracing opportunities, and really hiring smart individuals. And I think that's a key takeaway for all the young people who are trying to grow in their career right now. So we really appreciate you being on this webinar today. And I also want to appreciate Mr. Steve Sangi, who joined this webinar. He was our guest in the last webinar. And also special thanks to Mr. Rajiv Kanda, the PEC Dean of Alumni, for joining this webinar and sharing the PEC updates with us. And I also wanted to quickly announce our next webinar will be sometime in the first week of March. So please mark your calendars. And until then, bye from here, and really appreciate everybody joining this webinar today.
Well, thank you,
Harpal.
everybody. Again.
Thank you, Harpal, very much. Thank you, Kapil Nanda, again, and thank you, everybody, and all the best, and looking forward to our next webinar coming up in early March.